I remember I don't think I knew the difference between an attorney and a lawyer up until like halfway through U of I.
Wow.
It's the same thing.
For those that don't know, I
Uh,
didn't know that. What's going on, guys? To another episode of Consciously Curious. Today we have Nick Lange, class action litigator slash attorney. We're gonna deep dive into the world of law, and I'm a complete outsider, so you're gonna have to do a little helping with this. But how are you, first of all?
good, good. I've just maxed out on cinnamon rolls.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah. Please don't go into a diabetic coma on us at the moment. But going into back in time, at what point did you realize you wanted to get into law?
it's hard to say. Probably sometime in undergrad at U of I, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
So you went in kind of undecided?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
No idea at all?
No. I took a pre-law class
Okay.
in undergrad, and it was in the law building, and I thought it was so cool.
Okay.
Because I was an English major
Yeah.
and philosophy minor. I think I was trying to do a double major in both, but and again, that was just default. That's because I didn't know what else to do.
Mhm.
But then I took this one pre-law class at U of I,
Okay.
and like I said, it was in the law building, which is a little bit away from where all the other undergrad classes are.
Okay.
And so we were in the really cool classrooms, and we had an actual law professor, and the seats swiveled around, and it was really nice. I remember, and I killed it. I did such a good job because I was so interested. A teacher liked me. I'd always be like raising my hand, and
Yeah.
and
It's a good sign.
the first person to like submit an assignment, I remember, would get extra credit. And I'd be like running home after class, like vaulting over the bushes just to make sure I got that. So I did well in the class. I had a good relationship with the professor and made some connections. And that's where I just thought it would be so cool to actually go to law school.
Okay. Aside from being, I guess you had a natural inclination for it, were there other inherent motivators or a sense of inspiration that drew you towards law, towards eventually practicing law?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Nope. I mean, in high school, I had no idea.
Right.
I was just good at English and writing.
Okay.
So I decided to major in that at U of I and signed up for English classes, mostly probably because I just didn't know what else to do.
Okay.
Probably like a lot of liberal arts students.
Sure.
But yeah, and I just took that class and I just decided that's what I wanted to do. I remember I don't think I knew the difference between an attorney and a lawyer up until like halfway through U of I.
Wow.
It's the same thing.
For those that don't know, I didn't know that was like that.
But like, yeah, there's nothing that really drew me to being an attorney. I like the way that I imagine most attorneys speak, which is precise, and they say what they mean to say
Yeah.
without speaking ambiguously.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, they're specific. But that's really the only thing that I guess that,
That drew you?
yeah.
Interesting. And in undergrad, how did you find out about the different niches within law? Were these classes or clubs or?
I don't even think I knew about the different practice areas. I mean, back then I was so naive and young, and
Wow.
I mean,
You're taking a leap of faith.
yeah, I was, especially when you consider the cost of tuition.
Right.
And the time and the misery of law school.
Yeah.
But back then I think I recognized that there were litigators, which are the attorneys that are in the courtroom,
Okay.
and pretty much fighting with people. That's what I think of when I hear attorney. That's what comes to mind, a litigator.
Okay.
So I knew there were litigators, and I knew there were non-litigators.
Okay.
For example, like if you buy or sell a home, you'll get an attorney to prepare your closing documents.
Sure.
I mean, those are attorneys too. They don't litigate typically, but those are attorneys. They draft all your closing documents. mergers and acquisitions, when companies acquire each other and sell off subsidiaries and all that fun stuff. There's teams of lawyers that need to prepare all those documents and securities filings. And I mean, these are all things that lawyers do, but
Right.
it's not litigating.
Okay. And that wasn't appealing to you.
Yeah, it just seems a little routine.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there's a bunch of nuance.
Someone's got to do it. Yeah.
Like if I started doing it, I very, very well may grow to like it.
What's
but
more lucrative?
I think it depends.
Okay.
Yeah, that really depends. You could have, if you own your own firm, like even something like traffic or parking tickets,
Mm-hmm.
which seems like a very routine practice area. There doesn't appear initially probably to be a lot of complexity there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that the attorneys make a lot per piece of work that they do, like per issue that they help each client with. I don't think the income's that great, but you consider how quick it is. And if you can turn that into a volume-based practice, even a parking or traffic.
There's a lot of parking tickets out there.
Yeah, and that can be very lucrative. So I don't really think you can just say one practice area is more,
Sure.
you
That
know,
makes sense.
has more income than others. It really depends.
So going into law school, at that point, did you know what kind of law you wanted to practice? Or that's not even a requirement to get into law school?
No.
Is it like they'll take anyone, or like how does that work?
I don't even know if I can remember.
Right? UIC just took out over John Marshall.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that. But no, there's no, at least as far as I'm aware, there definitely wasn't when I applied to law school, but there's no requirement to specify which areas of law.
Okay.
You may be a more attractive applicant if you're able to articulate in your, essay portion of your application why you want to be an attorney and you're drawn to a specific practice area, but there's no requirement.
That's not a requirement?
Nope. Which is why I think you get a lot of people that just go to law school because, they don't really know exactly what they're doing. And again, I kind of fit into that shoe or that, that mold, but, yeah.
But you on a day-to-day basis, you enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
So did you get lucky?
I mean, yeah, well, to some extent, I think so. But, I took a winding road to get where I am now.
Right.
And there's no way looking back that I could have connected the dots looking forward. I think
no one can.
yeah, there's just no way to know how things will play out. And I think to a certain extent, it's silly to even worry about it too much because who knows how it's going to.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to prepare yourself to take advantage of certain opportunities when they present themselves.
Right.
But other than that,
Right.
I wouldn't stress it. Yeah, so after law school, I had some good clerking experience at different litigation firms downtown.
And what do you need to be or have to be a law clerk?
It really depends. There's law clerks for judges and there's law clerks for law firms. And I was a law clerk for law firms downtown. And that's really just you do attorney work more or less, but you don't appear in court. Everything's supervised and reviewed by another attorney. So you kind of help out behind the scenes.
Okay.
And there's no requirement for that. You'll interview with law firms.
But you don't need a bachelor's or anything like that. You don't need to be in law school. It would help to be pre-law or be in law school. But
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm talking about when you're in law school. I can't imagine that.
someone off the street can't just go and become a law clerk.
Right. Because no law firm would really be interested because they wouldn't be able to provide much value, I don't think, until you're actually at least in law school.
Oh, okay.
But there's no requirement as far as I know.
Okay.
In terms of a degree, just to be a law clerk.
Are there people that make or are clerks as a career, or is it usually a stepping stone?
Yeah, I do think there are. If for judges, they have clerks, law clerks. They'll usually have law clerks. I think that are students for maybe a semester or so, but they also have full-time professional law clerks.
Okay.
And I don't know what the salary is for that. I don't think that's as high as if you go to the private practice, but I do know that there are full-time professional law clerks.
Okay.
And these are people with their JDs, they graduated from law school, and they're, also some of them are brilliant because most of the judges do this. So you can have the Supreme Court, like their law clerks are very sought after.
So this is because maybe that clerk wants to eventually be a judge, or?
It could be, or just it's a really great way to provide experience for, if you're going to be litigating and arguing to judges and trying to persuade judges on behalf of your client, it's really valuable to have that, that insight
Yeah.
as to what it's like on the other side of the field.
Right.
Because as a law clerk for a judge, the judge asks the law clerk to review, all the arguments that the court has received and to evaluate it, see which, side the law clerk thinks is right, then present the finding to the judge. The judge will review it and maybe go back and forth with the law clerk. But it provides great insight, I think, as to
I would
the interworkings of the
That's
court.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. If you could do law school over again, like, would you change anything different about it? Did you feel prepared for it?
Yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot I would do differently. One thing that I think I've noticed, I think that the older law students tend to do better, at least in terms of grades and motivation. Just like having, some of the law students will have taken a year or two off between undergraduate and attending law school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those 1 or 2 years off, just doing something totally unrelated,
Okay.
really like motivates you and sharpens your focus.
I thought you were gonna say like be a law clerk or something for the year, or take a year off, get some life experience. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, life experience, but just
Yeah.
not really being a law clerk.
Oh, okay.
Again, I don't think you could really do that straight out of undergrad.
Well, I think that's just for any field. Is like the older you get, you realize that what's important to you, and you do take certain things a little more seriously, like your education and things like that. Whereas maybe if you're younger, you're a little more unfocused and you're doing it maybe for different reasons, and you go in just to do it, I guess.
Right.
So maybe
That's exactly it.
okay.
And the value of money, I think you realize that more as you're out working. Firstly, you can like compare law school to what you're doing now. So you have some type of you can put it in perspective. You have something to compare it to. Whereas if you come straight out of undergrad, you're comparing law school and the idea of being an attorney to what? Like nothing. You don't really have a full-time job yet because you just came out of school.
Yeah.
But if you go do something else for a year or two, you can compare what you're doing then to law school.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. If you can find another job, I think that would probably be a good way to go. I don't think you're really going to hurt yourself by doing that. And then you can make sure you want it before you go.
No, on average, it's 2 years if you're full time. Is that how it is, or
3 years.
3 years? Okay.
For law school. But you could really, if you load up, you could do it a little faster, I think.
3 years, and then is there a maximum if you did it part time? I know a couple people that do it part time.
Yeah, like a night student or something like that. Or
Um,
part time during the day.
Maybe every other day, or I'm not sure. They work at a fire department, so they're always hiding in a hole studying their homework at the fire department, but they're at Loyola.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how that. I don't know, maybe 4 years. I have no idea how long that would take.
Okay.
But I can't imagine that's an easy life. Firefighter and law school.
Nope. Yep. For sure. But it makes you think. It's like, if you could do it, accomplish it as a part-time, or in like, what would you want to do with it after? I wish there was a way to like find out, like, I guess this is what we're trying to accomplish now. It's like how to find out the different niches within the world of law before you actually invest that time and money.
Right. If you're particularly astute and inquisitive as a young person, you may be able to, recognize those nuances. But I didn't really before I became a lawyer.
Yeah. You didn't have that like sense of like wanting to bring justice to the world, or like make some wrongs rights, and
not so much. It was more just the thought of being logical and thinking clearly, as opposed to emotion-based reasoning. That's what I like. Like I was took a lot of philosophy classes.
Okay.
And I like that analytical approach to solving problems, and that's just what made me be interested in law school. That's why I signed up for that one class.
Yeah.
Where I was vaulting over the bushes, and
the
rest was history.
Sure. So then on a day-to-day basis, like what, like walk me through an average day at the firm.
Yeah. So it's not what you probably think if you watch a lot of TV. Like I think a lot of people think that lawyers will get in fantastic shape just from jumping up and down in the courtroom, shouting objection, Your Honor. But like that's not really what the day-to-day of a lawyer is. And again, this is going to depend on what type of law you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do litigation, and now I do specifically class action litigation. So, some of the largest cases in the country, there's a ton, and even more legal research behind everything that's written and everything that's filed. I mean, everything needs to be reviewed. It needs to be perfect by the time you submit it because the stakes are so high. It's, huge cases. And there's just a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes, and someone needs to do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I sit down in the morning, I straighten my back, correct my posture, just start typing. This is all day. I mean, I read cases, I review them, I research, and then I either type down my argument to the court, or I email co-counsel or opposing counsel, or I draft a memorandum to other attorneys we're working with, kind of summarizing my findings and giving a recommendation on how to proceed. And we do that for everything. Every question that we need to answer, research, and
it's very official.
Yeah. And it depends. In my old job, I've been doing class action work now for maybe like 6 months. I'm not really sure without pulling out my calendar, but before I did condo litigation, mostly on behalf of condos. I would represent the condo building or like the townhome association or your homeowners association. I would represent either the building or the association. It's usually the same thing. And that litigation was different. It was quicker. It was more volume based. The legal nuances were not quite as numerous and profound. And the amount in controversy, like the stake of the lawsuit, usually wasn't quite as high. So there, I would be in court every day. So I guess it kind of was almost like your TV lawyer.
Sure.
Every morning, I would be driving to a different courthouse outside most of the collar counties around Cook County. So DuPage, Kane, Kendall, Will County, all over Cook. Cook has 6 different courthouses.
Oh yeah.
Courthouses in state court, civils, state court. So all over, just driving all over the court. It would feel like a half day every day.
Oh wow.
So I'd be driving, go to court, drive back to the office, and then. So that was different, and I don't really know why it was different, but that just goes to show like the different practice areas, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
If I did transactional work, like of real estate, if I was a real estate attorney, I'd probably be driving every day to a different closing location, where everyone gets together for the closing and the attorney has everyone sign everything. I'd have to show up for that probably. For the rest of the time, I'd be drafting those contracts.
Yeah.
So it really depends.
Huh.
But for me, it's just a lot of reading and writing.
That would put me to sleep.
Yeah, it's not easy all the time. Sometimes it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But you also get to points where there's a question, I'll be researching it for a week, and there's just exception into exception into exception, and my brain
deep in a rabbit hole.
Yeah, really deep.
Now,
down.
by doing research, are you just going to older cases in history or Google, or what are we doing?
Yeah, that's that's an excellent question. So I don't think that every country is like this, but our country is like this. The rulings of earlier judges in other cases serve as precedent to future cases. So that means, although there are, of course, a bunch of exceptions, generally the judge in your case needs to follow, what the judges did, what this judges in the same court did in the same kinds of cases before.
Same context, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Needs to be consistent.
Because things change occasionally, and
And sometimes you'll have, court rulings from other states or from other jurisdictions. Then the question becomes, well, does your judge need to follow those, or should he follow them? Even if he doesn't, maybe they're persuasive because it's the exact same set of facts in those other cases. So if you want the judge to follow it and the judge doesn't need to, you'll be arguing that it's really similar and the judge should follow it. Whereas if you're on the other side and you don't want the judge to follow those cases because they go against you,
right,
then you say, "Oh, Your Honor, this is from a different jurisdiction. It's entirely different." But so generally though, that's what you are researching.
Okay.
You're researching what the judges did in similar cases before you.
Okay.
And then when you find a judge that did something that you want your judge to do in your case, then you gotta, find analogies or, similarities between that case and your case.
Yeah.
Like on the facts.
Man, what if it's so unique and it's never happened, right?
Yeah. And that's what we call a matter of first impression.
Oh.
And that's that's a very astute point. And then you need to look at the closest set of, well, you don't need to, but one of the strategies is to find the closest set of facts that you can find.
Yeah.
And see what a judge did there, and then try to extrapolate. So you would say, like, well, Your Honor, this has never happened before, but the closest we can find is this case, and this is what the judge did there. Our situation's pretty similar, for these reasons, and you should do the same thing.
It's very objective. You've never used the argument, like, just do the right thing. Like, there's no intuition to it. Like, this is the right thing to do.
I mean, that's always I think that's the lens at which we view and hear all the arguments, but that's never really, at least in my experience, that's not really the opening and closing point. It's just the right thing. In my experience, it's best to tie it to a law, something that the judge
Logic
needs.
and objective.
Exactly. Because, what seems right or fair to you may not seem right or fair to the judge or to the other attorney.
You never considered being like a defense attorney or a prosecutor or anything like that?
Not really, and I don't know why. I don't have a specific reason, but no, that never crossed my mind.
So as a class action litigator, are you ever going in front of a jury or just the judge? And because that's the thing, right? Like sometimes there are no juries.
Right.
Okay.
Juries are pretty uncommon.
Oh.
Trials in general are pretty uncommon.
Oh.
Most of the problems you have, if you ever need an attorney and you need to show up in court to get something done, it's probably not going to go to trial. I think they say like 99% of all lawsuits are settled.
Oh. Okay.
And keep in mind that like 99% of all disputes don't become a lawsuit.
That too, yeah.
So the ones that do become a lawsuit, 99% are going to settle.
Oh, I love that.
And then you'll have your 1% that'll, everyone keeps fighting and eventually it will go to trial. And even then, it may be a bench trial, which is just with the judge, not with the jury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't really know the details of that, but I think in criminal law there are, certain protections for jury trials. But
So it's more seen in
civil.
Civil.
Yeah, in civil, my understanding is you can, again, there are a bunch of exceptions, but generally, I think you can pick if you can ask for a jury trial or you can ask for just a trial before the judge.
Oh, okay.
And that'll depend on your set of facts. If you think your problem is something that a jury will be really sympathetic to, then maybe you're going to want to ask for a jury. But if you're doing something that you think a jury wouldn't like and you need, someone to approve it, then maybe you're going to want to just ask for the judge.
Like, it's pretty hard to be a defense attorney. I would, in my eyes, especially if it's a pretty bad crime.
Oh yeah, for criminal work?
Yeah.
My one of my friends just texted me the other night. She's watching some TV show. But yeah, that's what I guess the story's about. The attorney's in like a tough spot between representing his client vigorously and upholding his professional obligations
Yeah.
against
Like,
his human side.
exactly. Like, ethically, what if you know, like, the truth, and, like, here you are still trying to get this person out of jail or minimizes their sentence and things like that.
Yeah, that would be pretty tricky.
Hmm.
Fortunately, as a civil
Hey.
litigator, I don't really need to,
So if you could, and it doesn't have to be a case you're working on right now, but, like, just to give everyone perspective of what a class action litigator, like, what type of cases?
You're right. I probably should have started with that. So my understanding, many years ago when I would hear class action, I would just think that's whenever you have like 5,000 people suing one person. That was that's an overly simplistic view of it, but it captures the essence of it. A class action is whenever it's like consolidated litigation. So when you have a bunch of different plaintiffs, the plaintiff is the person that files a lawsuit. They're the people that have been hurt. When you have a bunch of them, but their case is so small that it's not worth it for them to file suit. Like, let's say, for example, what would a good example be? Like, let's say you bought a box of cereal that says it's organic.
Yeah.
And it's not. Or it says like it's gluten-free and it's like filled with gluten. It's like pure gluten. It's just a bag of flour. And you didn't realize that gluten came from flour, so you bought it thinking there's no gluten. We'll do the gluten example. So you bought this, something says no gluten. It says gluten-free. You can't have gluten.
Yeah.
So you go buy the box of, cereal, let's say. And then you learn that it has gluten in it and you can't eat it. So you've been wronged. I mean, you've been lied to. Someone told you there's no gluten in it. You bought it. Let's say it costs $5. But when you figure out you've been wronged, like, what are you going to do? Your damages are $5. Are you going to pay an attorney and file a lawsuit over $5? Like, it doesn't make sense. Your attorney fees would be thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to spend thousands of dollars just to recover $5.
Right, right.
And even if you could somehow, which is difficult to do, recover your attorney fees, usually you can't do that unless an exception applies. So you can't recover your attorney fees. So no sane, logical person is going to spend thousands of dollars on attorney fees to try to recover $5.
What if they spilled hot coffee and the coffee cup didn't say hot, extreme caution? Or if you didn't get wings from drinking Red Bull?
Yeah, even so, generally those are situations in which you can't recover attorney fees. Unless, I mean, that's the American system. I think other countries do it a little differently. Maybe some states, even in the U.S., have different like presumptions. But at least in Illinois, you can't recover attorney fees unless you have a contract that says you can recover your attorney fees, or unless a statute provides for it, or some other limited exceptions, as always. But generally, yeah, you can't get
even
your
if you
attorney
win the
fees.
case.
Right. That's just the cost of justice. You got to pay your attorney.
So if you win the case, then that money, whatever money you goes, essentially a chunk of that goes to attorney fees.
Exactly.
Yeah, as it should.
So yeah, there's two types. I mean, there's contingency fee cases, or there's hourly work. So
Yeah.
like in personal injury, a lot of times you'll see the plaintiff's attorney will file the lawsuit, and then they won't charge the client anything. But if the attorney prevails, the attorney will take like a third of whatever the total winning is, or maybe a quarter.
That's why you see all those ads, right? If
Mhm.
you're injured, like, call us for
no-
free kind
yep.
of thing. Okay.
No charge unless you win. Like, that's where it all. So a lot of plaintiffs' work, if you're injured, personal injury cases, that's the type of fee structure those attorneys will do. And again, whatever you win, part of it goes to your attorney. Or you could do, in most other types of litigation, you pay your attorney by the hour. That's pretty standard.
Okay.
And unless there's some exception, you generally don't get to recover your fees.
Okay.
But again, there are a bunch of exceptions, so that's not going to be the case every time. But generally, it's pretty tough to.
Is that how you're getting paid right now? Hourly? It's like, what if a case never even goes through? Like, that work that you put in, was it counted for?
Yeah. Well, class actions are a little different
Yeah.
Well, let me go
Okay,
back
sure,
first,
sure,
and we'll
sure.
get there. But so generally, you can't recover your attorney fees. So like in the example that we're talking about, you're not going to pay an attorney thousands of dollars to try to recover $5,
Yeah.
and it would take months of time and depositions and all. No sane person would do all this work for $5. So then the person that's been hurt, like they're just going to go home and forget about it, and the company's going to keep doing it to a bunch of people. So that's why a class action exists. It allows attorneys or people, really, the people that have been wronged in $5, they can all group together, team up, and then suddenly the scales of economy shift. So now it's not $5 versus your thousands of dollars in attorney fees. If you get like, you know, 1 million people that have each been hurt $5 for their fake, you know, gluten-free product, then I said 1 million people, $5 each. Now it's $5 million, and it, you know, versus the cost of your attorney. So now it's worth it. So that's what class action litigation
I love that.
is.
Okay, that helps.
Yeah, because I didn't. Yeah,
Because sometimes I get letters saying like, "Have you been a victim of such and such? And if so, you
Mhm.
may be, entitled."
Yep. So you would fit into some type of potential class action,
Huh.
maybe. So yeah, that's what. And then in those types of class actions, usually the plaintiff's attorney, for their payment, it'll be like in a personal injury contingency case where they'll take some percentage of the winnings, if there is a winning.
Okay.
If you don't win, yeah,
Wow.
you're out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does that apply to class action?
Yeah, generally, yeah. So,
Okay.
you know, the plaintiff's law firms will fund the case. They'll put all their time, a lot of time into it. But if they don't settle or if it goes to trial and they don't win at the trial, then yeah, they generally don't get paid.
Wow.
So it can be a big risk,
Wow.
especially when you consider that class actions can take
And
years.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And to give even more perspective, on average, how many hours a week are you working?
It swings, but
So on a good week and then on a bad week, on a busy week.
I mean, it could be, you know, a good week would be, well, if we're talking about hours that I'm actually working at the office, it could be anywhere from, you know, 40 or 50 if things are going pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a bunch of deadlines looming, it could be 70, it could
Wow.
be even more, 80.
And you take it home sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's just,
That's the nature of the job, or?
yeah, that's the nature and the flexibility. You can
Yeah.
work at your office or you can,
Oh, okay.
as long as you get your work done on time and you do it well.
Yeah.
But that'll depend.
Yeah.
You could ask like 20 different attorneys and get 20 different answers on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I always thought class action litigation was just really interesting and really cool, and I wanted to try to find a way to do that.
Okay.
So, you know, back when I was doing condo litigation,
Yeah.
I specifically wanted to try class action, so I just looked for the class action openings, and you know, I hit the ground running whenever I saw one of those openings, and I really went in there and tried to get it, and
And
it
when
worked.
you look for these openings, what are they looking for? Do they want someone fresh? Do they want someone with an open mind, with an open canvas, or what are they?
It depends.
How much experience are they looking for?
Well, for class action,
It sounds big. It sounds important.
yeah. So you see a lot of those openings are looking for people with class action experience already.
Mm.
But litigation experience is, I think, pretty applicable across the different practice areas.
And you were a litigator. Okay, yeah, you were a litigator for the condos. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So if you're doing litigation, like all the research, you're reading all the cases and you're used to writing written arguments for the court. You're used to driving to court, showing up in person. Like a lot of those skills, if you're used to taking
It's
depositions.
transferable. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like the fundamentals of being a litigator is litigating.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a tautology, but so because I had that litigation experience, I was able to kind of segue in, and then my interest and passion just I was able to pick it up
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Okay. How much do you think you'll stick in class action for a little bit?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, and the complexity is, my prior practice area, like I was saying, I think it's a little. The legal questions are bigger here, and they're way more difficult, and that's what I appreciate. And
Okay.
like the sky's the limit in terms of complexity, and
So the challenge is there.
yeah, a little too much challenge
A
sometimes.
little too much challenge. How is the autonomy? Do they give you a project and you work on it, or is there any micromanagers?
No, I mean, that's another thing that's really just going to depend on, however your boss is,
Okay.
or however your firm structure is. Maybe you're a boss, but that'll all depend. Generally, though, I would say the structure in law firms is you would have, like a partner, like usually a owner, or they have an ownership interest in the firm, and then they'll have kind of a team of attorneys that works under them, and that partner or that part owner will supervise their team and make sure the case is moving along in the right direction.
Yeah.
Maybe assign some specific tasks to the attorneys working under him or her, and then make themselves available for questions and so forth. But
So-
that's really going to depend.
When you is it just as? Do you just have just as much say when you choose a firm as they have in choosing their attorneys to work with?
What do you mean?
Do you feel like you have the power to, or the influence to choose which firm you want to work with? I guess that probably comes with experience, but
in terms of just options when you're applying for jobs, or if you want to switch firms, the demand for attorneys.
I guess I'm trying to go back to being like a real estate agent. Like when you first become an agent, you're actually interviewing the firms, and you get to choose which firms you want to work with instead of them. The power isn't solely in the firms picking up real estate agents. The agent has the power to which firm I want to work with as a real estate agent. So I was kind of wondering if there's the same thing, same weight as an attorney, as a litigator,
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it goes both ways. I mean, the firm's not going to want someone to work for them that they don't want.
Yeah.
And as an attorney, as an individual attorney looking for, a new firm to go to, you're not going to want to go somewhere you don't want to be.
Right.
So I think, they both need to match up.
Yeah.
Like any relationship, I guess.
Got that right.
Both sides needs to,
What's the culture like?
That's really going to depend again. I feel like I'm saying that a lot these days, but there's so much variety. You hear a lot of horror stories about attorneys just working crazy hours and being shouted at or screamed at by coworkers.
Oh, wow.
And, in my experience, that's doesn't happen.
Okay.
Maybe I just got lucky, but I think
More of a TV thing, or actually it does happen. You're just not in your experience.
not in my experience, not really in the experience of my colleagues. I think that's
Gotcha.
probably more of a TV thing.
Okay.
I would say professional, but at the same time, there's some flexibility.
Yeah.
As the overriding concerns, I think, should be just doing your work well and doing it on time. And as long as you're doing those things, I think there's generally some amount of leeway with respect to all the other stuff. Those are the two big things: do your work well and do it on time.
Yeah. But that you can say that about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Because the work-life balance is so one-sided sometimes, what do people do to de-stress?
When I was in law school, I was talking to an attorney, and he said a judge told him that the most important thing that makes a great attorney is nothing legal. It's just his hobbies, because you got to stay grounded. You got to have a way to get away from all this. It can be really stressful,
Yeah.
as I'm sure a lot of jobs can. But you just got to have your hobbies and your stuff to get away to,
Yeah.
where you recharge, and it keeps you sane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really important.
Yeah.
it's easy to get swept away with all the cases and legal research and stress and
Right. Especially with deadlines. I don't know if this is, and you don't have to say it is, if it is, but like, have you noticed people abusing things like drugs or alcohol to escape or maybe to enhance their workflow?
yeah. I hear that that's actually a pretty big issue in the legal profession, but in my experience, maybe that's something like if someone's having a problem with it, they're not super open and
Yeah.
with that, which I guess would make sense.
Right.
But so maybe that's just the reason. But I haven't, in my experience, that doesn't seem to be a big issue.
Oh, okay. Dang. That's good. What other niches would you have any interest in dabbling in? I guess if you could like name top 5 in the country, like what are the most popular type of attorneys?
I don't know. See, I'm a little biased because for me, I just really wanted to be, class action litigation.
Okay.
I really wanted to see what it was like and do it. And I'm doing it now. But
I guess was there a way to sample it before you actually made it a job? Or is that what you get by being a law clerk? Is
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of
just
how
what I
your
was gonna
trial
say.
run? Okay.
and I think that's the way to go. When you're in law school, once you've decided, I'm not sure how, but once you've arrived at the conclusion that you want to go to law school, then I would definitely clerk for probably some different law firms. Try to, because like every firm's different and every practice area is different. There's so much variety. So start getting out there,
Yeah.
and just seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, because
Yeah.
that's the only way you're gonna know.
Yeah. Agreed.
Otherwise, it's you could go to one law firm that does probably class action work and go to another law firm that does class action work down the street and have two totally different experiences.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's so different.
Was there a pre-law club?
Yeah, at U of I.
Yeah.
And they would, I don't even really remember. There was,
What would they do? Like bring in different attorneys or?
yeah, we did some of that. I was a member and then also a board member of the Pre-Law Honor Society. And then I was a member of just the general pre-law club. And yeah, we would have events where we would bring in some attorneys to talk about what they do.
Yeah.
We did a lot of like things with getting ready to apply to law school, because that's a really stressful time for undergrads, as you can probably imagine, with
Yeah.
the LSATs, like the law school admission exam.
Yeah.
So we'd have a lot of admissions, like deans from the law schools come in and talk with them.
If you could reminisce, how were the LSATs?
That was like a blur, blur in my memory. It was tough,
Yeah.
and I've heard that they're not great indicators of success. But
Like most standardized
yeah,
exams.
yeah, probably.
Okay.
But I do like because again, what I was attracted to with attorneys back before I really knew anything about the law was just the way that they were analytical and the way in which they spoke, and they chose their words carefully and so
Yeah.
forth. And that's one of the sections on the LSAT is just logic and reasoning.
Okay.
So that analytical approach really comes through in the LSAT. So I
Sure.
thought that was kind of cool.
What about the bar? What do you remember? Was that a blur too? Or?
Yeah, that was a longer blur. that was a more painful blur. But I passed, fortunately. On the first time. But yeah, I know people that didn't. It's just stressful.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time studying for that. I don't know how that compares to, the other exams for other professions. I know a few of them have them, but
Like what study methods worked for you? Is it what is it? Is it just reviewing cases and cases and cases, or like or refining your analytical process, your critical thinking process? Like what is the bread and butter of it? Like
yeah, I think it's a little both. It's you need to memorize or have a good working knowledge of the actual substantive law, in like a handful, like maybe like 10 different practice areas. So for like personal injury, that's when people get hurt. You would generally need to know what happens, the different causes of action, like negligence and torts, breach of contracts. You need to know the actual law for that, like what constitutes a breach of a contract, how do you form a contract,
Okay.
what are your damage, like you need to actually memorize
Wow.
the
I
laws.
didn't know. That makes sense. The bar is a generic law exam.
Right. For
Okay.
each, some states there's a universal bar exam, but Illinois, at least back when I took it, it's just Illinois' bar exam. So you got to memorize Illinois' law on all these different topics.
So do you have an option of whether you want to take the national or the state, or how does that work?
Again, this changes, but when I was taking the bar exam, which wasn't too long ago, a few years ago, I mean, if you wanted to practice in Illinois, you had to take the Illinois bar exam. There was a group of, I don't know, 10, 15, I'm just guessing, but a group of states that all would accept a group of states that would allow someone to be an attorney there if they passed the universal bar exam. And that was well, I haven't taken it, so I can't really say, but I imagine that that's a more generic type of the bar exam. You know,
More
Illinois.
broad, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because it's encompassing all the different laws.
So
of the
if you
different
wanted to
states.
go to another state, would you have to take that exam, the national exam, or take the other states?
Right.
Because it probably depends on the state, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, so all states have their own policies for that, but generally, if you've been practicing already for like 3 to 5 years, somewhere around there, states will let you waive
that's
in.
great. Okay.
But you know, that depends on the state that you want to move to,
And
it
where you're
depends
coming from.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
because they all have their own agreements
Same
with each
thing
other.
in emergency medicine. Some states
yeah?
have higher standards. So if they know you're coming from this state, it's like, ooh, you're coming from Washington. All right.
Exactly. So they'll have a lower threshold for
Yeah.
people coming from those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty. It sounds like that's about the
Okay.
same then.
Okay. Yeah. Pretty similar. What about future Nick? What's in store for future Nick? Do you want to be a partner one day?
Yeah. I mean, that would be nice.
Is that the pinnacle? Is that like the peak? Peaking out?
Yeah, it could be. But you could also have an associate that, you know, whose lifestyle in many ways is similar to the lifestyle of that associate as a partner. I mean,
So what does that mean? So you're not an associate right now. So it's like, what is it?
no.
Litigator, associate, then partner? Or?
So usually it's, well, again, depends on the firm, but generally it's like associate you'll have, and then maybe a senior associate or counsel if some firms have counsel positions, but some like middle position. And then you'll have, you know, your partner, or some type of either a member if it's like an LLC, or a partner if it's a partnership. But you know, the higher tier, the manager.
Yeah.
And so I'm an associate right now. Yeah, I mean, at some point, you know, partner would probably be nice. That's the, I feel like for a lot of attorneys, that's the, you know, the place that they want to be. That's what kind of, you know, they wake up each morning with some thought to make partner. That's certainly the case in all the TV shows about law firms, I think.
But being an attorney, I'm sure it helps you out in just like your daily life. Like, I'm sure your friends hit you up for whatever jams they get in.
Oh, yes.
Let's say parking tickets.
That's a little too common.
I mean, how easy is it to get out of a parking ticket if you're an attorney?
Oh,
I guess you have that background, don't you? Or
we'll find out, because I have a couple coming up.
Oh, okay. So you actually have to go to court for this, or?
We'll see. I contested it, and I'll get something in the mail in like 2 months with, you know, my date to come in and contest it. So who knows what's going to happen.
Oh, wow.
But every area of law is so specialized that, you know, if it's not something I do, I'll usually just find someone else that can help them.
Yeah.
You know, attorneys refer people around all the time.
Okay.
So if someone came to me with a divorce problem, which happened recently, you know, I'm not going to pick up this new divorce case and do it myself, but I'll find an attorney that I know and trust and put them in touch with the person that reached out to me for help.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Where does it looks like you're very fulfilled. Where does the sense of fulfillment come from?
probably just the fact that I've wanted to be, I've
I
wanted
guess
to try
so.
class action litigation for so long.
Yeah, it
And
is
I'm doing
fulfilling
it.
though, right? And where
Yeah.
does it come from?
I
Like,
think-
it's hard to explain, I guess, for me to understand unless you were
Yeah.
like a prosecutor, and you're getting justice. But I guess people can be wronged in class action as well.
Yeah, I mean, it upsets me. I definitely don't like the thought of a company intentionally, lying
Yeah.
to people,
Yeah.
figuring it's so small that no one's really going to do anything about it. So we'll just,
Until millions of people.
yeah, team up and
That's
then
kind of cool.
fight back. So there's some of that, especially, we do a whole ton of different class actions, some for environmental contamination.
Yeah.
Like that's a much bigger motivator in those types of cases, a sense of justice. When you see people that are, their property and their lives have just been ruined by environmental contamination.
Right.
Against auto manufacturers, we have class
Yeah.
actions. So people spend a lot of money.
Yeah, Volkswagen got sued like a couple years ago.
Yep. There's really all the manufacturers. There's a bunch, and if someone spends a lot of money on a really nice car, the car could be worth way less. So if the dollar amount's higher in each individual circumstance, sometimes maybe that motivator is a bit more present. But generally, what I enjoy is just, and I think this is true probably for a lot of different professions. You just got to figure out what you want, and then as long as what you're doing kind of checks those boxes, I think you're going to be satisfied. So you just got to figure out what you want. And for me, like, I wanted complex questions, like complex cases, something that I can really invest in. I can keep learning. There's more to learn,
Yeah.
for the rest of my life. I want to just find that one area and then just, start sinking my teeth in and digesting it and learning and investing in my career. So
I just feel like that skill set that you just described is very transferable, and it's broad, and you can probably take that into any career.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to find out why law and not, let's say, medicine. Why not engineering? Because in medicine, you need to be analytical. You need, and you will have challenges that are always like complex challenges that are different.
Right. Yeah, it seems like all my friends recently have been doctors, and I've been wondering that too. But there are a lot of similarities. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, it's just, that's probably part of what I was saying about not being able to connect the dots looking forward. I mean,
And it's okay, yeah.
if I happened to take some like med class back at U of I instead of my
Wow.
pre-law class, maybe I'd be vaulting over the bushes in front of the med building instead of the law campus. It's really hard to say, but yeah,
Yeah. Huh.
Could
That's
be.
interesting. What do you think we could be doing, let's say, before college to get a better sense of what field we should be delving into? Do you think high school should have had more broad classes? I know there was like autos and electric and wood shop and things like that,
Yeah,
but like
I like that stuff.
for all the careers, I don't think there was enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be nice to, broaden that and get as much new experiences in there as you can.
Yeah.
I think undergrad would be a nice.
But I guess in undergrad they have like pre-law club and things like that, and pre-med, and
Yeah, but I don't know.
it depends on which school you go to and whatnot. But
I just don't know how great those programs are for seeing what it's really like to be a lawyer. Like,
yeah, like shadowing experiences.
I mean, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
And like I said, even if you find, like, I had an attorney that I had plans to go to follow or to like tag around the office for a couple days just to see what it was like. It was a family member. And I can't even remember really if I did that or if I didn't. But even if I did, it's so different for every attorney at every different firm in every different practice area.
Yeah.
Let alone if you're on the plaintiff side or the defense side. I'm usually on the plaintiff side. But there's so many factors. There's no
Yeah.
way to know.
Do you think there'd be another career you'd want to pick up? down the line, do you think you'd have that much time to like pick up another career? Just kind of like the firefighter that went into law.
I've thought about soap making for a while.
Yeah.
I actually did make my own soap once.
Get out of here. You're a jack of all trades.
Master of none.
Master of none.
But I think it would be fun to own and like open a restaurant, but
Yeah, I think, or we talked about coffee shop, right? Or a full blown.
like a restaurant that
Restaurant.
specifically caters to like quirky, like it'll pick one thing and just do it better than anyone else. Like
Wow.
whether you open up like a pudding shop or empanadas or like mac and cheese,
Yeah.
just pick one specific thing, just do it, better than anyone else.
Yeah.
That'll be kind of fun. But no, I don't really have any thoughts.
One of my other guests. I'm not sure if you're a coffee person, but one of my guests, he brews his own cold brew, in a method called Kyoto style cold brew, and it takes his process about 24 hours to brew a batch. And he, cold brew is on the up and up right now, but he is like up here, or like I guess down here as far as awareness, with this method being Kyoto cold brew, and obviously it comes from Japan, but
Right.
it's a drip process, and it's the smoothest, finest coffee I've ever had, and he's blowing up right now. Things like if you go to Cindy's Rooftop, you can try his coffee.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have like mixed drinks with his coffee, or other places.
Oh, that sounds
he's
pretty cool.
branching out right now around the city, but people are starting to get like he's starting to gain traction, and I mean maybe down the line, way down the line, he'd be down for a brick and mortar shop, but it just like sounds like he's working out of like a small kitchen space in the back of another coffee shop, but yeah, it's rare but very exciting to find people that do something that is different but do it so well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always. I feel like if you go to like Chef's Table on Netflix or something, I like.
Either that or what's the her name's Samin. Acid, salt, fat, acid, and sweet.
If we
something.
direct our attention to
Right?
the.
Oh, you have a book?
I have her book.
Oh my goodness.
Fats, salt, acid, at heat.
Yeah, that
That's
show is amazing.
Yeah, it's also a good book. The show's from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first like half of the book. So I feel like I just want to pull it down and like just open the book up. But the first half is all about like, it's just like she has like a chapter just all on salt and then a chapter all on fat. And
crazy.
it's not recipes. It's just teaching you how it works and
Yeah.
like guiding principles. And then the end of the book does have recipes. But it's just crazy for a cookbook to spend so much time.
But you have to understand what you're working with.
Right. And
Yeah.
but most that sounds intuitive, and you would think that, well, of course that's how you do it. But most cookbooks don't do. It's just a list of recipes.
Yeah.
So it's a good book.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any other questions, maybe because I'm such an outsider. But I mean, is there anything you wish you knew going into it, or you're okay with just connecting the dots as you go? But like, if you were to give any advice to any aspiring pre-law students.
Yeah, I would just say make sure you want to do it first. Like,
Yeah.
don't. I think it worked out pretty well for me, but maybe that was just a little bit of luck. I mean, really try not to spend all the time and money in law school just for no other reason than to do it.
Yeah.
Like if you're an undergrad and you don't know what you want to do, and your parents and at every family party everyone's asking what you want to do, all your friends are going to like med school,
Right.
don't just, you could tell people you're going to law school and then they'll kind of, that'll
Like,
satisfy
great.
most
Ooh,
people.
yeah.
Right. Oh, that's great. And they'll move on and,
Right.
badger someone else.
Right. Right.
But don't do it just for that reason. Try to, don't do it unless you really want to do it. And if you don't feel like you really want to do it, what I would suggest is doing something else, anything else for like a year or two.
Because you can always come back, or.
Right, you can't always come back. And if you take a year or two off, you're not going to be behind. I think, and it's subjective, but if you do something else for a year or two, you'll be in a better spot when you come back because you're going to be, more mature. You're going to be more motivated. Your focus is going to be sharper.
Yeah.
You're going to know what you want. And you'll probably have some idea even what practice area you want to go into. So when you get to law school, you can really hit the ground running, like how I did for class action litigation. Once I decided that that's kind of what I really want to try, you can be like that from the beginning of law school. And then you can work your tail off to get exactly, the type of experience you want. And then
that makes sense. It's good advice. I have a buddy who is currently a radio DJ, and he got a full ride to DePaul. Tried it for a week and then found out that's not what he wants to do. And he's currently a DJ, but he was like a promoter for the radio station back then, similar like to equivalent to like a mailroom type job. And he didn't like the workload, and like he'd rather be putting in his dues, paying his dues at the radio station, because he knows that one day it'll serve its purpose and pay off by becoming the DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just telling people, like you said, early, like that I'm in law school.
Right.
Yeah. I think in high school and in college, and I'm sure many people, had that inherent sense to appease your parents, and they kind of got you to where you are, and you want to make them happy, and as far as my experience, like they had a set definition of what success meant to them. And so if you weren't meeting that, you were letting them down. So kudos and shout out to the super supportive and open-minded parents out there that'll, no matter what, support their kids and stuff. But yeah, Nick, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything anything else?
I would just say, if any of your watchers are out there and they're on the fence about law school,
Sure.
or they have a question, or for whatever reason, I'll give you my contact info, and or you can list it wherever you list this, or we'll make some way available for those people to reach out. But I'm happy to talk and
thanks. Okay.
give my advice some more. But
it is so hard to find mentors out there.
Yeah, I had a pretty good mentor.
Cool.
Out of law school, and that was really helpful. So yeah, I'm of course open and willing to and able, I think, to help out in whatever other way.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Other than that, stay curious. Aloha. This sun is like beaming down on me. I'm like sweating balls right now. But on to the next episode. All right, peace.